Hello, and thank you for joining me today on Loyal World Info. Another day of the globe spinning, another day of global news to digest. I offer a sane, rational voice in an insane, rational time. I will be your host, and let's get into today's topics. It is April 8th, 2020, and the topics of the day are mandatory tracking app implemented, Foxconn to make ventilators, DV and its media push, medical staff putting lives on the line, reality, stay safe, overseas job offers, Hong Kong protest for freedom, orangutans and otters living together, and how do you want your life to end? Okay, moving on to our first topic of the day, mandatory tracking app implemented. Phones, companies tech, tracking, daily conditioning, and rights. While I share the info, think about the following questions for after all the info is presented. Questions. What do you think of phone tracking and the methods being used? Should they be part of our daily life like video cameras? Does your country have some type of app to track you currently? Google and the government. Google data shows your location data is already likely being used that way by mobile operators to feed traffic information to map apps. And it is such information that the European Commission has requested from mobile operators, which can determine the location of users by measuring the phone's signal strength for more than one network tower. In fact, mobile operators have already been providing such data to health researchers in both France and Germany. Google, which collects large amounts of data from users on a myriad of services, plans to publish information about the movement of people to allow governments to gauge the effectiveness of social distancing measures. In particular, it will display a percentage point and increases and decreases in the visits to such locations as parks, shops, and workplaces. Now, Bluetooth stealth. An onmoyod is an aggregated only gets you so far to get particle data, like the people with whom our infected person has had contact with. You need to get invasive, or do you? Singapore pioneered a method using Bluetooth. This is the technology that allows people to connect wirelessly headphones to phones or earbuds to their smartphones. If you've ever connected a pair to your phone in public places, you'll probably have noticed that the devices of others nearby. In this future with the Bluetooth that the Singaporean app Trace Together exploits. Someone who has downloaded the app and kept their Bluetooth enabled will begin to register codes from all people who have the app on their phone and whom come within range. Germany is looking into rolling out something similar. Privacy concerns. The Singaporean app is designated to reduce privacy concerns. For one, the app is voluntary. Another is the app doesn't track your location, rather it collects codes from the phones of the people whom you come to relatively close contact. That information is only uploaded to the operator of the app when a person declares himself or herself as having come down with the bug. The Tracing Together app then matches up the codes except for that no one can see except for the operator with the telephone number of the owners and then messages them that they have been in contact with someone who has been diagnosed with the bug. spies in charge. The other means to get practical information is to utilize the location of data of the phone users. This is a method chosen by Israel in which internal security agencies, Shin Bet, is in charge of obtaining data from mobile phone operators. It also gets access to phone data and the movement of people for a 2-week period to help track down people exposed by the bug. Sherbet does not get access to the person's phone, however. Proportionate or temporary. Putting the fox in charge of guarding the henhouse is unlikely to sit well with rights and privacy groups, although they don't exclude the use of technology to help combat this crisis. However, states' effects to contain the virus must not be used as a cover to usher in a new era of greatly expanded systems of invasive digital surveillance, said the statement issued on Thursday. The privacy group. They warned that an increase in state digital surveillance powers, such as obtaining access to mobile phone location data, threatens privacy, freedom of expression, and freedom of association in ways which could violate the right of trust in public authorities, undermining the effectiveness of the public health response. They said any additional digital surveillance powers should be necessary, postponed, and temporary. We cannot allow the bug pandemic to serve as and execute to gut individual rights and privacies. This article was in a Singapore newspaper, and I bring this up because I want to show how some of this was used in some countries later. So, keeping on the same topic, but changing articles over to Ukraine. The Ukraine introduces an app to track quarantine citizens using GPS data. The Ministry of Digital Transformation of the Ukraine said that it is introducing a mobile application designed to monitor people's compliance with self-isolation and observation rules pending quarantine. Officials say that Dave Dummy, the Act from Home app, is a safe platform mandatory for installation on smartphones by persons who have potentially contracted those infected with the bug, as well as citizens registered with medical facilities as those who must remain in self-isolation at home. Okay, so is it going to start with this bug, and then is it going to go to all felons or criminals later? Then is it going to go to nationwide, and then is it going to go global? So this is one example that I bring up, and please leave your comments below about the question I asked earlier. Moving on to our second topic of the day. This took place in a Taiwan newspaper, but it involves the U.S. Taiwan Foxconn to produce ventilators at the Wisconsin plant. The Taipei Foxconn Technology Group, known as the world's largest contract manufacturer of electronic products, is discussing plans with Medtronic Block United States to make ventilators at its new Wisconsin plant to help fight against the bug virus. While known for turning out Apple, iPhone, and other consumer electronics, Foxconn has already been involved in the production of surgical masks, most recently at a factory near its new Taipei city. The new factory in Wisconsin, once held as a top new manufacturing site for electronics in the United States, will play a part in the ventilator project, according to the CEO. Although he has been the focus of criticism amid doubts about Foxconn keeping its promises. The invention was to speed up the process so the ventilators could soon reach patients to save them from the coronavirus, according to the statement of the government. The U.S. has confirmed more than 400,000 virus cases and more than 12,000 deaths. Stay tuned for my comments on this. My thoughts about Foxconn making ventilators. While this could be great, it may use U.S. labor, but there are too many unanswered questions or left out information. Perhaps it will use foreign work visas to fill jobs like the H-1 visas and others. And my other question is, where do you think these products made here will go? Back to China to keep or resell to the highest bidder? Or will they stay within the USA to help our own? Please leave your comments below. I would love to know. Moving on to our next topic of the day. This is from Japan. Support groups fear domestic violence spikes amid calls for people to stay in their home. Support groups and individuals in Japan have raised the alarm that measures to fight the spread of the novel bug in Japan may fuel domestic violence as victims remain stuck at home with no avenues of escape. The All Japan's Women's Shelter Network, a nonprofit organization that provides care and assistance to domestic violence survivors, has submitted a letter urgently requesting Prime Minister Abe and his government to give better support to victims amid an increase in teleworking and calls on people to refrain from going out. One person was quoted by saying, "My husband started working from home and my children were out of school. So my husband became stressed and began to physically assault us." Another caller of the group established a members-only social media website for consultations since they were afraid to take the train to attend in-person consultation due to the virus. In response to this letter, the Chief Secretary said at a press conference Tuesday that the government was considering ways to strengthen the support system already in place. "We hope to expand and improve on the consultation services," he said. Stay tuned. I want to give you my thoughts on this. My thoughts on the domestic violence push. As I have seen articles about like the Malaysian government telling girls to wear makeup. I've saw articles in Taiwan and China about the same thing. So after reading this article, I finally want to respond to my thoughts and get your opinion. Domestic violence and media push. These articles have been popping up in many countries all over the world. In doing so, they are pretty much trying to downgrade every husband and tear apart families. Women provoke almost half of child and domestic abuse onto their families. And while you may hear about women's safety programs, you never hear about a woman anger management or DV classes. Is it possible women married for economic income and a roof over her head and had no desire to be a wife or find purpose in caring and loving for herself? Individualism tosses families aside and promotes victimhood. So here is my DV question. I am not saying DV doesn't exist. I worked as a DV counselor, but in my time doing that, many women used it as a fake excuse to regain freedom and leave their families behind or breaking it. Why do you think these global papers push these types of articles instead of positive things families can do together now that they have a rare chance to spend a long period of time together? Can you relate to what their article says? Does DV affect your personal life or those around you? Please leave your comments below. I would really be interested in hearing them. Moving on to our next topic of the day. Medical staff putting their lives on the line. This is a reality, folks. This story takes place in Vietnam, actually last night as I slept, at 12 a.m. Hanam quarantines 30 doctors and locks down one whole village. Some 30 doctors and medical workers in Hanam General Hospital have been quarantined for contracting the bug. Hanam Province Steering Committee controls have decided to quarantine 30 doctors and medical workers in Hanam General Hospital for contracting the 251st bug patient. The decision was made at an urgent meeting at midnight Tuesday after the committee received test results showing the patient was positive for the bug. The committee also immediately imposed a lockdown on village Nogohi in the district. The 251st patient lives in that village. Okay, so the patient is a 64-year-old male, and he was transferred there with his family. And so the government sprayed disinfectant on the area. But this is my question for you, because, you know, the Vietnamese, they love their family, and now these 30 doctors and medical staff, they cannot even go home to their family. They're stuck in a lockdown just because they were treating somebody else. So this is my question, and this is what the family is most dear to them. One could say residents stay home so medical staff can work and be productive, but there is no guarantee that the staff member will go home healthy. So my question, if you have a front lines family member or a friend, how do you cherish the time you have together currently, as it could quite possibly be your last, or perhaps you might get sick? Staying on topic with the virus, but shifting a little bit. This article takes place in Ukraine, and it contradicts a lot of what we've heard. We've heard most of the time men are dying more from the virus, but in Ukraine, more women have died from the virus. 87% of those who died from the bug in Ukraine were people over 50 years of age, and the Ukraine Public Health Center has reported on Facebook. There were more women among all those who died from the bug, and the proportion of the people aged 50 years and over, it was 87%, so definitely is affecting the elderly people. It notes that most of the dead women were aged 50 to 59, and men were 60 to 69. Most of the deceased women have severe cardiovascular disease, diabetes, numbness, kidney, lung, and obesity diagnosis. In general, the proportion of disease was more than 74%. Cardiovascular diseases, 40%. Okay, so my question is this kind of contradicting what the media says, but I also have something else. You know, when you die, isn't a doctor supposed to say what you die of and how? Now, are we just trying to make a doctor's life easy or the beautician's life easier? Because you could have a heart attack and die from the heart attack, but if you have this virus, there's automatically going to say, okay, die from the virus, next. And so it's kind of like a cop-out, in my opinion. Do you want to know how the person died, or do you think this cop-out is okay? Please let me know in the comments below. Our next article of the day. This takes place in New Zealand, and it's about being safe when applying for overseas jobs. Migrant paid for a job to get visa for immigration but loses wife to employer instead. A migrant worker claims he paid for a job for both him and his wife to obtain immigration visas, but is now fighting for 2,300 hours of unpaid work after his wife ran away with the employer and had his baby. The employer has denied all allegations against him and his wife claims he was lying. The man has taken his complaint to the Employer Relations Authority, claiming he was coerced into agreeing to pay $50,000 in installments by his employer for the job for his wife to work as a grocery store manager. He has so far paid $34,000. The man understood that as a store manager, his wife would be accepted as qualified for skilled employment by Immigration New Zealand, and this would allow them to meet the requirements for being granted residency under the visa laws. An expression of interest for a residence visa under this category was lodged and accepted on March 21st last year, with the wife as the principal applicant. The man, who did not want to be named, worked with his wife at the store for 98 hours a week, but was unpaid, while his wife was paid 35 hours but has to return the pay. Subsequently, the employer arranged for the man to work at a kiwi fruit orchard so he could have the freedom to make advances on his wife. According to the complaint, the employer succeeded in his advances to the extent that the man's wife became pregnant with his child, left her marriage, and moved in with the employer. The employer convinced the complainant's wife that she should leave her husband and live with him because he could guarantee her that she would be able to obtain a grant of a residence visa as his partner, it was alleged in the complaint. The woman gave birth to a boy earlier this year, and the employer is said to be the father of the child. The man was advised by Immigration New Zealand that his wife had informed the agency that she was no longer living with him in the marriage or partnership relationship, meaning he will not be linked to the application for residency. He estimates that he had worked about 2,321 hours without pay at the grocery shop and is now seeking the return of the $34,000 he has paid so far for the purchase of the job offer and $40,000 for the work he has done. The man was also seeking an appropriate amount of compensation for the hurt of loss of dignity, humiliation, and anguish. The employer denied the allegations and claimed the man was lying. The wife also claimed the man was lying and that she had been tortured by him. The employer's lawyer said that the client denied all allegations made and that they considered the man had been engaged in blackmail tactics to illegally extort the monies from the employer. He accepted the employer and received payment for providing the job, but the amount paid was disputed. In a letter dated January 10th, the lawyer said his client considered the allegations to be vicious in an attempt at extortion. Okay, so stay tuned for my thoughts on this article. I bring this article up because it's personal to me and a sign of the times. I myself took a job overseas over a decade ago because of a lack of jobs in my home country. And now the situation comes up again, but it's 10 times worse. So, I want you, the listener, to be prepared when somebody offers you a job during your hardship of life. I bring this article up as many people are offered jobs to places beyond their borders of origin. Many accept to better their life or the life of their family. Most don't do research. Cases like this have happened in Vietnam to fishermen sent to China. Sometimes this happens in Korea, where the workers go to factories. The EU, it's happened to workers in Italy and Spain, usually dirty work. When you think about accepting job offers from a stranger or company, do your research before you go. Get references, find out whom who can help you if a problem arises. Pause before you take a leap of faith off someone else's promise, as they usually put themselves and their interests before you. On to our next story of the day. Hong Kong anti-government protest. More than 7,600 arrested during the unrest. Now, actually, no, I don't like that. Okay, my thoughts on the Hong Kong protest for freedom. Remember the Blizzard Hong Kong streamer at the gaming show who protested? Or the NBA staff who supported the protest and China's reaction? Personally, as this and other big issues involved with China have almost gone unnoticed due to the above, it was always my belief they intentionally put it out there to draw eyes away from other things their dirty hands were involved in or wanted to do unnoticed. What are your thoughts on this? And also, in the article we read about police overtime. What do you think of creating a problem like a riot or protest to extract extra funds like overtime for a company or organization? In America, sometimes they do this with dental clinics or when you're out of work, workers' rights and stuff. They do things to kind of play the system. Do you think it's cool or not? Leave your comments below. Moving on to a more positive story of the day. Orangutans and otters living together. If you're in need of some wholesome animal content to distract you from the bug headlines, I got just the thing for you. A family of orangutans have become best friends with a group of otters at the zoo. The unlikely roommates who live at the zoo often spend their days playing happily together. Zazie, the spokesperson, says the two animals live together as part of a zoo's enrichment program, which is designed so different animal species can interact with one another. He says it is even more so the case with orangutans, whom humans share 97% of the DNA, must be entertained, occupied, challenged, and kept busy mentally and emotionally and physically at all times. For this, we have a strong enrichment program for our orangutans, where our keepers entertain them all day long with mind games, riddles, puzzles, and more to train their intelligence. It's made life more fun and interesting for both animal species. That's why we choose to let the otter family live in the river that runs through the orangutan territory. The otters really enjoy getting out of the water on the orangutan island to go play with their furry friends. So my question for you, what do you do to get a good laugh, smile, or entertain yourself in these times? Okay, moving on to our next topic. This takes place in Taiwan, but it's still about animals. It's the Shopee app project to help sheltered animals. So, a Singapore-based online shopping platform, Shopee has launched a short-term charity to help stray animals in Taiwan and relieve the strain on animal cares as the bug outbreak has led to a reduction in adoptions. The outbreak has lowered the adoption rate by 50% compared to the same time last year, the group of dog lovers said. Shopee has listed more than 40 products needed most by groups caring for the animals, including diapers, pads, canned dog food, cat litter, and pet bowls. Okay. Shopee would ship all items for free to the groups involved in the project, including the Animal Protection Association and Society for the Prevention and Charity to Animals. 16 pet products companies have joined in this project, which will run until April 19th. So I don't have a question on this, but I do say if you are an animal lover, you can go and download the app and show your support. Moving on to our last story of the day. Takes place in Ecuador, so that's my first article in Ecuador. Ecuador builds emergency cemeteries due to the bug outbreak. As of Tuesday, the country had 3,995 confirmed cases of the bug and 220 deaths, with 182 more deaths suspected of being linked to the bug. The outbreak has sparked a shortage of wooden coffins, prompting some people to bury their relatives in cardboard boxes donated by cemeteries. Large lines of cars carrying coffins waited outside private cemeteries across the city this week, as families waited for hours for a chance to bury their deceased relatives. The outbreak has overwhelmed hospitals and emergency services, with some families keeping dead bodies in their homes for days. The government, which last week began storing their bodies of the bug victims in giant refrigeration containers until graves were prepared, is aiming to bury some 100 people a day at a cemetery in the northern province, which has a capacity of 2,000 plots. So here's my question for you. When you go, how do you want to go? Does it have to be a wood container? Must you, or casket? Must you own the land or whatnot? Do you prefer to be cremated? And if you're cremated, will you be in an urn or will you be spread somewhere? Or will you do something else? Please leave your thoughts below. You should probably let people know because this virus can sweep you up very fast and no one may not know what to do. So, yeah, leave the comments below.